Casino dealers of Reddit. What's the biggest hand you've seen someone play and lose? How did they take it? Saw a young guy put all the money he had, $200, on one hand of blackjack. He gets blackjack. Now he has $500. He puts all of it on the next hand. Wins again. He keeps on winning and putting everything he had on the next hand till he's playing the table max. $5,000. He builds it all the way up to $60,000. The dealer starts telling him to take the money and run. He said it didn't matter. He was just there to have fun. He ends up losing it all. And he actually didn't care. One of my normal dealers in CA told me about dealing on the riverboats in Louisiana. Some guy comes in with $4 grand. Plays for a few hours. And eventually walks away with $1 million. Here's the kicker. He didn't give her a single tip. Not even $1. Instead, he insisted that he shakes the dealer's hand, which is a big no-no. But the pit boss allowed it. Karma is out for that one. I dealt cards for 2 years. I dealt high limits and $5 games. People who lost $25 a hand at the low limit table generally took it harder than the people losing $1,000 at a high limit tables. I worked at a casino in a rough part of Philly where a gentleman would carry $60,000 cash at all times and would keep buying in until he won. He also said thank you every hand he didn't win. The more experienced players know that they can make their lost money back rather easily while the inexperienced can't and don't think this. I once went to a casino with my friend. We were playing low limit craps. All of a sudden the dealer goes, "Look, it's Randy." I was like, "Who the duck is Randy?" Turns out it's Randy Moss. He was really cool with my friend and I. So he was playing pass line and odds and all the numbers, and the shooters were hitting well. I called the next roll as a hard 8 randomly and Randy just hands me 50 in chips, and tipped the dealer's wallet as well. He made a quick 4-5 grand. In about 25 minutes. Class act. Not a dealer. But I used to be a compulsive gambler. I spent many nights in high limit rooms. I was a regular at a few casinos in my area and was constantly winning and losing between $1,000 and $5,000 a night a few nights a week, depending on my luck. The best night I had was I turned 200 into a little over 10k playing blackjack one night. Worst was losing 5k that I had won the night before in about 15 minutes. Generally, even the high rollers gamble only 50-250 a hand in blackjack. However, there was a guy that would bet between 2 and 4k a hand. And I would regularly see him betting 10-30k a hand if he was having a hot night. At the casino I typically went to, they had purple and white $500 chips and he had a chip holder like they dish out for poker, completely filled with those. He had a credit line with the casino and could take out 100k in credit out at a time, no problem. I saw him do this 3 times in a single night. No idea. But by far the craziest gambling I ever saw was last spring at the Cosmopolitan Casino in Las Vegas. A young Asian kid was at a craps table and throwing around 10k chips like they were water. He had probably 500k worth of chips in front of him. I've got all kinds of stories from my 2 years as a high roller gamble. Met all sorts of crazy individuals, both rich or poor. Some stories are crazy and happy, some insanely depressing. I work for an online casino and one of our players went double or nothing 19 times a row on a $5 video poker game bet. Won $1.3 million US, which means they risked it all at 600k. Cheat. They went double or nothing after $40. Not a dealer. My ex lost $10,000 in about 5 minutes of blackjack. He proceeded to drive to the nearest bar, get loaded, get naked, puke all over his interior and call me crying to come pick him up. Took him home. Cleaned him up and was outside washing the car and talking on the phone. He saw me through the windows and locked me out because he thought I was calling the cops ? That was a fun day. Worked as dealer a couple years ago. This regular came in. He usually played poker but sometimes he played some blackjack before going to the poker room. And sat down at my table and started to play. After 15 minutes he might have won 1 or 2 hands and he was down $45,000. He didn't even react. Barely shrugged and walked up to the poker room instead. Must be nice to have that kind of financial freedom. I have a friend who went on to become a professional poker player, was a statistics major at college. The thing you need to understand, at least with poker players, that you can't view the money as rent money or food money but rather as working capital in a business. You need to spend money and risk money to make more money. All players have a bankroll and 50% of being a successful long-term player is adequately managing that bankroll. Playing 3 hands $2,000 each. Dealer gets blackjack. He smiles at the dealer, gets up real slow and proper like. Punches himself in the face so hard people from 50 feet outside of high limit heard the connection. Comma not dealer. Just a player. I was playing Gal poker, casino game, with a progressive jackpot. It was only around 150k, only, guy next to me refused to play the progressive, costs $1 each hand, and also refused to play the fortune bonus, side game single bet. Wins on straight or better. He gets the 7 card straight flush, which is the criteria for the progressive win. Doesn't get the $150,000. Doesn't get paid the fortune bonus, 750, 1W joker, would have been 5,000, 1 if natural. It was a low flush and ends up pushing the hand. Every time I see him he comments on how much could have won. And every time I asked him why he'd play a progressive casino game outplaying the progressive bet. My rule at the casino is only play with money you're okay with losing, and at the point of which you are ever doubled up your money, you take what you started with and put it in your pocket. That way you're only playing with money you've won. You play for free. I've never been to a casino, but I've seen people stake party hits and lose. Not a dealer but worked in a casino in various jobs for a few years. The biggest I was told about by a client was that he lost $10,000 in about a minute. He seemed pretty nonplussed. That's like him though. I worked in valet at the time and he'd come in about 5 times a day. Usually for under 10 minutes. And the only way you could tell whether he'd won or lost is if he told you. Or by going on what he'd tip. Nothing if he lost. $5.20 if he won. Up to $100 if he won a lot. The biggest I was told about by a staff member was a guy who wanted $300,000 cash. I think about 5 security guards escorted the cash up to the VIP room. Which is who I heard it from. They had to leave then though. He was in a private room which only has a very limited number of staff allowed at any given time. So I still don't know whether he won or lost. Was playing poker at Caesars in Vegas. I have AA, no diamond. I end up getting all in with a shorter stack on a KDQD3S flop. He holds JDTD. Turn is as. River is at giving me quads. But in the royal pot was $400 or so. Not a big loss. But the big loss was that Caesars is the only Harrah's property without a bad B jackpot. Ironically, they have one now. For reference, had the same hand occurred at Red Rock that evening, I would have won 40% of $280,000. I saw the dealer 3 years later, and he still remembered me. Not a dealer, but my buddies and I were gambling at the $10 a hand tables at the Wynn, back when they still had them, and having a blast. A guy walks up and asks if he can sit at the one open seat. Which we say sure. He then takes out a $50,000 marker from the house. And proceeds to lose all of it in about 25 minutes. After that, he tells us to enjoy our time in Vegas. And leaves like nothing happened. The pit boss told us he was some well-known poker player. So he had the money to burn, I guess. Probably late to the party on this one. But I dealt high limit BJ for a few years. Some guys had limits higher than posted. The highest limits we had were 15k for one hand, 10k per 2 hands, 7k per hand for 3 hands. There were only a few guys that had those limits, and even then didn't play table max all the time. The single hand that sticks out to me, guy has 10k bet. Splits. and doubles down one of the split hands. Lost all 3. So, 30k. Got so pissed off I slammed his hand down and broke an orange chip. 1k. Took everything in me to keep a straight face. Guy was a big dig and he deserved to lose every bet. I used to deal at a small card club in Oregon and the biggest I ever did was a single heads up Texas Hold'em pot with just under $5,000. It's not much in the wide world of poker, but for our town it was a pretty big chunk of change. I think I've only heard of 1 or 2 bigger ones in town since then, but they were all multi-way PLO Mahor pots that ended up getting split. Sorry buddy. A little late to the party. Biggest was on Baccarat. 400k. Didn't bat an eyelid. Most turnover on my table was 20 million in 20 minutes. Biggest color change was one mother-in-law in chips. That was all in private rooms. On the high roller floor. Most I gave a guy was 175k in an hour. He was ducking stoked. Again on Baccarat. I gave an old lady 33k in Caribbean stud since she got a straight flush. She didn't care at all. Most in blackjack was maybe 100k. Over a night though. To a politician from Papua or one of those countries. He also liked to duck men, but kept it hidden and secret. Roulette high rollers is only about 60k in an hour. Main gaming floor. Roulette. Around 30k. He was happy and left. But then came back and lost it to me. Blackjack maybe 20k. Lost that as well. Baccarat. Probably only 20-25k. They kept most of that. Edit, if you want to know more in-depth things. Just ask. Edit 2. Spent 6 years dealing. Started as a one-handed dealer. BJ only. Then Baccarat. And then roulette. Dealt at all levels of the casino world. From the general public to the junket super whale people. I was at the Lisboa Hotel in Macau. Somehow, we'd wandered into a private room where one guy was playing Baccarat. In the entire room. It was just him playing against the house. He lost the equivalent of $350,000 in about 20 minutes. He just raised his eyebrows and some flunky came over with a suitcase full of cash for him to keep playing. Not a dealer, but my parents are addicted to gambling. Seeing your mom down 50k or hearing how there is no money for X when you know they just lost a couple grand in a casino stays with you. The worst is one of my siblings has the same problem. The worst. This sibling was up 75k only to lose it all. Or losing 15k they just did not have, on credit. I fear supporting them in their old age and having them spend their food money at the slots. I've already bailed out my sibling more times than I could ever imagine. And yes, I always want to cut them off. But it's hard when you hear how they have no money for food or rent. I've lived my life the exact opposite way because of this. I went to the casino once. Played roulette. Didn't really care, only had like $20. I had friends all spending in the 200 plus. I was the only one who came out with 1000 plus, landed on 30 a few times. Which was the only thing I betted on. Which was all spent on alcohol at the club later that night. Best $20 I've ever had. I saw an opportunity for someone to win over 100k but it didn't qualify. Allow for me to explain. In Atlantic City, there is a bad beat jackpot, which means that a dollar is raked from every hand. From every poker table. All day until someone hits the bad beat jackpot. Now the bad beat jackpot is when you lose a hand with 4 of a kind. The catch is that both your whole cards need to play and same with the person who beat you. For example, if your whole cards are AA against KK, and the cards are AAKK too, that's a bad beat qualifier. It doesn't qualify if it's A2 against KK and the board is AAKK. See the difference? Now when the bad beat hits, the loser if the hand gets a heavy majority if the pot, 65%ish. The winner of the hand gets roughly 25% and then the remaining players at the table, regardless if they were in the hand or not, split the remaining 10%, usually a couple thousand each. And then the entire poker room gets $400 each just for playing at a table. So it's a very big deal when it hits and everyone gets crazy. Anyways, these two friends were playing at the same table and were both in a hand together. Neither of whom wanted to take each other's money, so they checked it down, made no action, all the way to the end. Each of them had pocket pairs that hit for a 4 of a kind. They both realized that they hit the bad beat jackpot until the floor reviews the hand says there wasn't enough chips in play to qualify, over $20 pot. That's when the tears started to pour. Man, was it devastating for all who were watching. Obligatory, I'm not a casino dealer, but I used to gamble a lot in underground card clubs and casinos. I saw a guy lose his brand new tow truck in less than 10 minutes in a game of 4, 5, 6, also known as CeeLo, in the basement of an Italian cafe. That game is pure action and the variance is breakneck. The most I saw a guy lose on a poker table was $125,000. The guy who lost the hand didn't say a word, he just took out his lighter and burned his whole cards right there on the table. No one said a word. He's dead now. R.I.P. Crazy Joe. The craziest reactions came from players at much lower stakes, turning over tables, ripping cards, throwing chairs, even attacking the dealers. I once saw a Russian dude lose a hand and promptly rip the clock off the wall and hit the dealer on the head with it. That place was surreal. I don't gamble anymore. I dealt baccarat in the VIP room of a casino here in Australia, and the most I saw anyone consistently bet per hand is $150k. He was a young kid whose father owned an island. One night I remember he was doing really poorly and was waiting for more money to be brought over from the cage, and we started chatting about what he likes to do in his spare time and what he was going to do on New Year's Eve, fishing and hanging with the kids BTW. I also went so far as to tell him that just one of his bets would set me up for life. He didn't really care about the money. Gambling and drinking hilariously expensive cognac was just something to do. I work at the LVH Sportsbook in Vegas. The most I have ever seen a person lose on one bet was $300k. It was a college basketball bet during March Madness, but I can't remember the exact team. It was something like a 15 seed upsetting a 2 seed. Anyways, the loser was a regular in the casino and a ducking asshole. Everybody hated this guy. He would just do nasty shit like spit on the floor and not care that somebody would have to clean that up. Well, when he lost, he was sitting in our VIP room which have cameras. He went ducking a beat. I mean throwing shit, screaming and breaking anything he could touch. The boss let everybody watch the tape and bought us pizza the next day. I probably missed the boat on this one, but here goes. My friend works as a bartender at Nobu restaurant in Crown Casino. One night she was asked to serve drinks in one of the private betting rooms. All of the guys are Chinese and speak practically no English. There was a misunderstanding and my friend poured water into this guy's glass instead of the Chinese wine that one guy was drinking. And he totally lost his shit at her. The guy next to him, who spoke English, apologized on his behalf and said, "You'll have to excuse my friend's behavior. He has just lost $4 million. I saw Tito Ortiz lose $100,000 on one hand a couple years ago. He didn't seem upset at all and I saw him the next day walking around without a care. Not a dealer, but was in the casino once and a man sat down next to me very drunk. Started talking about how his wife wanted a divorce and was trying to take all his money. He casually gambled away £20,000 on roulette over the course of 30 minutes. Said that's all of his savings. Laughed and stumbled out. I was speechless. I was a casino pit boss for 8 years. I watched people win and lose big amounts on a daily basis. The funny thing was is that I didn't care if they won or lost, as I couldn't accept tips in my position, so I got paid the same regardless of how they fared. One night this guy lost a ton of money in a matter of minutes. Unable to blame himself for his stupidity, he blamed me and threatened to cut me up into little pieces. He was banned from our casino but not the parking lot. Every night for 2 months he waited for me. Every night my security guards had to escort me out to my car and take one of their cars to block this Ashatin so he couldn't follow me. In answer to your next question. Yes. I did contact the police and was told that unless he physically did something to me, there was nothing they could do. 2 years ago I changed from that job to pharmacy and couldn't possibly be happier.